You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers about hikers for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hello and welcome back to Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, sponsored by Trailtopia Adventure Foods. This week, for episode number 87, we have a father who had long planned to hike the AT by himself and his 14-year-old stepson. Spencer Leebolt and Blaike Bateman, Blake is the 14-year-old, are somewhere near the 900-mile mark, and I caught up with them recently. When I thought about it, the dynamic of having to care for another person on the trail, even though that person is 14 years old, is going to be so different from the hike that Spencer had originally planned. As you'll hear, though, the two of them are working as a team towards a common goal. Hats off to Spencer, by the way, for giving this valuable education to his boy. For those of you wondering how a 14-year-old who is not homeschooled can get away from school for such an extended period of time, well, Blake has a great answer for that. This week in
If I Hit It Again,
we have the return of the delightful Kelly Anderson, or Sleeping Beauty, who did a flip-flop in a 12-month period spanning 2016 and 2017. Kelly is very clear what she'd change were she ever to do this again, and as you'll hear in our interview, she is itching to do it again. And because we have a shorter than normal main interview, there is a short story of life on the trail by Blaise Vitale, who was also on the show some months back. But before we get on to this packed show, it is dinner time. Do you remember those cold, wet evenings on the trail when you pitched up at a shelter and there was nothing you would have rather had than a beautiful, hot, home-cooked meal? Well, apart from actually going home, you could try out one of the delicious meals from Trailtopia. Why not dig into their spectacular jambalaya with its authentic Creole flavour? Or how about their beef stew, which is loaded with beef, potatoes, carrots, mushrooms, corn, green beans and green bell pepper in a fantastic beef gravy. Go on, try them. Trust me, you'll love them. Trailtopia, the best of home cooking away from home. So now, let's get on with the show. First of all, it's a father and stepson duo who are currently on the trail and heading north. I was really interested in the relationship between the two, and they gave some good insight into how this can work. I should also say, we had a dreadful line with a terrible delay. I would interrupt them, they would interrupt me, and there were seemingly interminable gaps. Luckily, I've been able to edit most of that out, but I think I can say with some certainty that this is the most highly edited interview I've ever done. I haven't changed the meaning of anything, but it is edited. Here are Spencer and Blake. Okay, I'm on today with a father and, I believe, stepson. This is Blaike Bateman and Spencer Leebolt, play-by-play and pit boss. Hi, guys. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Pretty good, thanks. Did I get those names right or not?
Yes, you did.
Oh, cool. Now, Spencer, your original plan was to go solo on the AT. Whose idea was it to have play-by-play come with you?
Me and his mother discussed it. I was going to go solo, and then we started talking about if it would be a good idea to try to include him, and we both agreed that it would. So about a year before I left, he was added into the plans.
Oh, really? So you've been planning quite some time. How long have you wanted to do this then yourself?
About 6 years, I'd say, is when I first heard about it. So
right.
It's been in the back of my mind for about 6 years or so.
Yeah, once it grabs hold of you, it doesn't go, does it?
Exactly. It's like all you think about until you go get it done.
Yeah. So obviously, I'm sure it's been good for Blake. Did you have any doubts about Blake joining you on such a sort of, let's face it, it's a tough journey, isn't it? So were there any doubts in your mind about him as a 14-year-old joining you?
No, not really, which may not seem like, it seems like most parents might have some second thoughts, but I wouldn't have brought him if I didn't know that he could handle it, you know?
Yeah, I know that when I was on the trail, I had enough problem looking after myself. So is it tough to assume responsibility for let's face it, you're a minor on the trail because at the end of the day, he's your responsibility. Have you found it has changed your hike from how it would have otherwise been?
Not too much. No, he pretty much handles his responsibilities himself.
Okay.
In terms of budget, is the only thing that really changed a lot because we're eating for two and hostel bunks for two, and basically everything doubles as far as that. But he handles most of his responsibilities.
That's cool. So Blake, I noticed I had to look through a couple of your videos. Firstly, are you enjoying yourself?
Yes, I am. It is a lot of fun out here. We actually just caught up with someone we've been trying to catch up with for a while.
All right.
So
I know when I was watching one of your videos, you thanked your poles. Have you fallen much?
yes, a lot.
Yeah, tell me about those then.
Well, the first probably 600 times I tripped, my pole saved me. But after, I'd say Damascus, my pole stopped working. And, well, they kept working, but they just stopped stopping me from falling.
All right.
So I probably fall about 2 times a day. And yesterday we woke up at like 4 in the morning and got going by 5.
Wow.
To get to Daleville early, but we didn't realize the outfitter wasn't open yesterday.
Oh gosh.
So, because it was Sunday.
Yeah. So you're about 700 miles, aren't you? You're over 700 miles. You must have just done McAfee Knob and Tinker Cliffs. What do you think of those?
Yeah, we did that. They were beautiful. It was awesome.
And we just got to town, but we heard that section of over McAfee Knob is closed. There's like brush fires.
Oh, really?
So we got through just in time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
They broke out yesterday.
Wow, nasty.
Yesterday evening.
Wow. So that's really gonna screw up some people's hike for a couple of days, isn't it?
It might, yeah.
So on this trail, why did you want to come on this trail then, Blake?
Well, I thought it'd be a good way to bond with Spencer, and I figured it'd be better than school. So
yes, I'm sure it was. And has that proven to be the case so far?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, sure. And do you fit? I mean, I was thinking about this when I was thinking about questions to ask you for this trip. You're 14. Your father is obviously an adult. Do you feel like an equal partner in this adventure? Are you sharing the chores?
Yeah, I'd say that I say that we probably split things probably about half and half.
Yeah, pretty equally.
All right, that's cool. That's cool. And do you regard Spencer? Do you regard Blake as an equal partner as well?
Yes. Yep. And actually, when we were planning it, I planned it that way on purpose. I made sure that he had his own gear. Like I didn't want to be having him always using my things and me using his. He has all his own gear, so he's self-sufficient.
Right. Do you hike together all day long?
Sometimes. Some days we kind of split up, but we're never more than probably a couple miles apart at the very most.
Yeah.
Sometimes I speed up. Sometimes I slow down.
So how were you able to take the time out of school? That's not normal, is it? Or are you homeschooled?
So it's not very normal, but my school helped set it up to where I could come do this. I just had to have my grades where they needed to be, and my mom could legally withdraw me from school.
Oh, right. So you worked hard. You worked hard to get yourself in the position where you could do that.
Definitely, yeah.
Good for you, man. Good for you. I think that's a tremendous thing. I'm sure lots of kids thinking, "Oh, could I do that?" That'd be a great thing to do, wouldn't it? Get that extra time off school. And how have you planned a certain amount of time to do this?
He starts school again in I think
August 28th.
August 28th. So we're trying to be done by the beginning of August.
Right. Okay. Well, you're on schedule, though, aren't you? By the sound of things. Where did you start?
Yeah.
February 14th.
Yep.
Okay, so you're 2 and a bit months. Yes, you're doing more though. 700 miles.
We do need to pick up the pace a little, but we're in better shape now, so we should be able to do some more mileage days.
What's your biggest day so far?
A 20.6.
20.6. Yeah.
It feels like it, doesn't it? When you go over 20, it feels a long way, doesn't it?
It does. Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure. And one of the things, I do this, as my listeners know, I do this kind of cyber stalking of people to find out more about them. We had a conversation prior to doing this, obviously, but I looked on YouTube. One of the things that really struck me very early on in one of the YouTube videos, you scratched a P at the end of a BB on an Appalachian Trail sign. Have you had much negativity about this, and indeed about any other things that people see in these videos?
There was a bunch of negativity at first. And then we made a video kind of explaining what happened, and everybody let it go. It hasn't been a bunch of negativity since then, which is very nice because
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah,
it was a silly thing. And since then we've seen that a lot of the shelters and trees and really everything out here has been marked on, and we don't make a practice of doing that. That was a one-time thing, and it was a learning experience, and no more negativity has come from it. So that's good.
Really good. I'm pleased.
And since then, I've helped on the trail. Like, I've moved sticks that could trip people off the trail, and like picked up trash.
Cool. Okay.
So
now,
I did feel bad about it.
No, do you know what, man? I wasn't knocking you at all, but it's what a youngster would do, and that's a learning experience. And I think the trail is a great place to learn stuff, isn't it? So
yeah.
So how did your friends react, Blake, when you told them about your plan?
I have two things to say about this. One's a funny story about one of my friends talking about this journey.
All right.
And one of them is my friend's reaction. So a bunch of my friends are like, can I come with you? I'm like, you don't want to come with me. Trust me. They're like, yeah, I do. I don't want to be in school anymore. I'm like, trust me, you do not want to come. They're like, dude, just let me come. I'm like, no. You have to buy your own gear. It's probably going to cost you about $5,000. And they're like, oh, never mind.
Yeah, maybe not.
And funny story is my friend, I was telling him that I'm going to do this. He's like, so what do you do? Are you out in the wilderness for 6 months? Do you have to carry like 6 months worth of food? I'm like, no, that'd be like 200 pounds. He's like, and I was like, there's towns all along the entire trail. He said, oh, that's not as cool. Why are you doing that? I'm like, because it's cool. I'm doing 2,200 miles. He's like, oh, and then just walked away. But I thought that was funny because he didn't understand the sheer scale of the Appalachian Trail.
I must admit, nor did I when I started, frankly. The thought of walking that distance, especially over the first few miles, I remember after about 70 or 80 miles thinking, God, I feel exhausted. And I was about 2 or 3% through it. I always thought in percentage terms. And then just the miles keep ticking off, don't they?
Yeah. Right. You can't think of it in terms of the whole thing. It's just like day to day.
That's right. So,
and then at the end, they all add up.
Oh, yeah. It's been a really, really cold start to this year's hiking season. You guys must have had it as bad as anybody, starting in middle of February. How did you cope, or how prepared were you to cope with that cold on the trail?
We were very prepared. We both had 15-degree sleeping bags, insulating sleeping pads,
liners,
puffies, thermal layers, everything we need to keep us warm. But we found that we didn't really use it in the beginning of our hike. More towards the middle of March is when we got hit with the cold weather.
And did you cope with that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say we did.
Yeah, the Smokies was the worst of the snow and the very, very cold temperatures. And in that period of time, we had basically put on everything that we brought, and we were okay. We were comfortable.
There's a raw beauty in the Smokies, though, isn't there? There really is this magnificence. And I've seen a lot of the videos on the trail this year from the Smokies. It looks fantastic there. It looked fantastic.
Yeah, they are gorgeous.
Yeah, we've met a few people that have gotten frostbite, and
really?
We didn't get frostbite. We managed to keep our fingers warm and very comfortable. So we didn't get frostbite on our toes, fingers, nothing. So that's awesome.
Cool.
For that.
Now, when we talked before, And I made a I don't actually recall you saying this, but I've made a note about it. So you must have said it. Spencer, you said ordering a pizza at Partnership Shelter was one of your ambitions. Did you kind of map your hike around certain, I don't know, iconic places on the AT? Or did you know pretty much where you wanted to stop at certain times?
Yeah, I've pretty much mapped it out to try to hit certain things, but day to day, you never know what's going to happen. So we're definitely changing plans a lot out here.
Are you?
Like, that's one thing I've learned, is to not be very rigid. Like, we have to do this and we have to go here and we have to do it like this.
Yeah.
Cause it just changes, there's that one we got to do, but I'm sure some of the things, well, we got McAfee Knob. We tried to plan that to get it on a good day, and that worked out.
Cool. I bet it's beautiful.
We got Clingman's Dome on a good day with a view.
What about some of the balds? What, Max Patch and places like that?
Oh, yeah, we had Max Patch, on a beautiful day.
We got
Awesome.
Max Patch on a beautiful day, and the day afterwards was a raging snowstorm.
Yeah.
So
it's an indication, isn't it, that you really need to take those views when they come, because if it may not be there the next day. So
that's right. You got to enjoy them when you get them, and we've already decided, if we miss certain views, you can't get them all. So you get some and you miss some.
So what are the other places you've penciled in you want to stop at?
Well, I want to go over Moosalok on a good day.
That's beautiful.
That's one I definitely want to go over on a good day. We've heard of a couple more shelters where you can order Chinese food or pizza.
The Ensign shelter and the RPH shelter.
That's right. You could do both, and I did both of those. Awesome.
Did you? Okay, so we've heard that. Yeah.
So what's the best thing that's come out of this experience for you individually? Both of you.
I think the best thing that I've got from it is knowing that I can work hard and do anything that I want if I work hard enough. And I think that's a really good life lesson to learn. And
Totally.
It's just, you can do anything if you work hard enough and if you want it.
Yeah.
Which I think is really awesome.
Have either of you thought of quitting the trail yet at all, at any stage? I
have not.
I haven't.
It hasn't even crossed. I don't think it's crossed either of our minds.
You weren't concerned about it even in the bad weather? You were still comfortable enough in it to be able to carry on?
Yeah.
I say yeah.
Yeah.
What have you got out of it then, Spencer?
What have I gotten out of it?
Hmm.
Well, for me, since I have planned it for so long, I'm basically just every day I'm happy to be out here. So what I've gotten out of it is really when something's on your bucket list, but you're not sure how it's going to turn out, there's a chance it'll turn out terribly and it won't be what you expected. So I'm happy that I'm getting something off my bucket list. And it's been really good to see. Also, what I've gotten out of it is pride in Blaike, that he has been able to roll with the punches and do something so epic at a young age. That's something I've gotten out of it.
Yeah, life goes downhill after this, Blaike. Trust me. I tell you, you're find it tough. You're going to find it tough to stop this at the age of 14 to do the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah, get the highlights done early.
That's right. How old are you then, Spencer? Because you're not an old guy, are you? So you obviously had to leave work for a period of time.
Yep, I'm 35, and I left a job. I didn't leave. It wasn't a career.
All right.
It was a job, but I did feel like I wanted to get it done when I was young enough. I've heard of a lot of people waiting till they retire and not being able to, if they're in their 60s, and I wanted to get it done while I felt like I still could.
Has this given you a desire to hike any other long distance trails, or was it always just going to be the AT?
No, I've actually I'm planning to Triple Crown.
Oh wow! With Blaike?
Yeah, I was going to do the PCT.
I want to do the PCT, but either way, I have to wait until I'm over 18 because I have to have a passport, I think.
Really?
I think so. I think you have to have a passport to go into
Canada when you get
right.
to the
I see. Yeah. Dear me.
School-wise, too, like if you wanted to do the PCT, it'd probably have to be after high school.
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway. So
Pretty cool to knock off the Triple Crown, but by the time you're 20, though, I must say, that would be amazing.
yeah, I would be very jealous of that accomplishment if
Yeah.
you got to do
I
it
don't
by
think I'm
20.
going to do it by 20. I think I'm probably going to do it like right around like maybe 25. I'll get my Triple Crown.
Nice.
But I have a really cool idea
Oh, yeah, what's that?
to do one. When I get back, to make like these little wooden pendants for each one of the trails. Make 2 of them. So every time we complete one, we get a pendant, and that'll show how that'll be our Triple Crown.
What's that noise going on? There's a strange noise going on.
Oh, there was something on the desk. I was scratching it.
All right.
Sorry.
I totally missed that. You were making these wooden pendants. Sorry.
Yeah, a wooden pendant of each of the trails, and that'll be our Triple Crown award, I guess. That'll be like our memory of Triple Crown in those little pendants, I guess. And
what about other people you've met on the trail? How have they been towards you as a 14-year-old? And for you, Spencer, what do people say to you about taking a youngster on the trail?
We always get the same common questions about, well, everyone asks how old he is. And then when he tells them, they say, well, how'd you get out of school? And he explains it. And after that, everybody just treats him kind of like another hiker, which I think is how it should be.
I totally agree.
You know, he's doing the same miles and he's seeing the same things. And so he's just another hiker out here, which I think is good.
So how did it do if you get your trail names? Or did you name yourself before you left?
He got his. Well, he might want to tell it. I got mine. We were talking about jobs that we've worked in the past. And I said, I used to be a pit boss in a casino. Oh, and I said, of all the jobs I've worked, that was probably my favorite job. And we were chatting and somebody said, hey, you want to be pit boss? And I said, yeah, sure.
Easy one. Nice. And how about you then, play-by-play?
I got my name day 3. We were in Woods Hole Shelter, the shelter right before Blood Mountain.
Yep.
And I was saying everything I was doing as I was taking it out of my pack. I was like, I'm going to take out my sleeping pad, my sleeping bag, and doing that. And after I laid down, the person we actually just caught up with and a few other people they gave me my name. So
play.
Stuck.
Yeah, quite right too. It's interesting, isn't it, how you kind of adapt on the trail to your circumstances, and how once people get over the initial thing of meeting you and realizing you're a young guy, just treat you as another guy. You get no concessions from anybody then, do you?
Not really. Everybody just says I have way too much energy and I'm weird.
Which one of those do you prefer?
But that's because
Which one of those? Is it the weirdness or the too much energy?
It's both.
All right, see.
Everybody out here does notice that his energy level, like at the end of the day, is a lot higher than everyone else's.
That's cool being 14 years old.
Right. It's just to be expected, you know.
I can hike 18 miles, get to camp, and jump around and run around.
Oh, God.
Still have, energy.
Imagine what it was like for me. I was 61. I couldn't bloody move at the end of the day. It was a nightmare.
Right. That's how I feel.
And has this deepened your own relation? You must have been pretty tight anyway before you came on this trip. Has it deepened your own relationship with each other?
I feel like there's a higher level of sort of trust
and understanding.
Yeah, because every day we have each other's back out here more
Sure.
so than we would in the other world.
Yeah.
You know, in the normal world, I go to work, he goes to school. We're not around each other all day, but out here we really have each other's backs all day long.
Yeah.
So I think it has bonded us quite a bit more.
There was one time recently when we were hiking with RTK.
All right.
I broke one of my poles. He was actually hiking north. He left before us.
Uh-huh.
Because he was 4 miles ahead of us. That was the day we were going into Bland.
Uh-huh.
It was the last snowstorm we had. We were hiking. I broke one of my trekking poles, and we were crossing a creek that I needed 2 poles for, and Pit Boss lent me one of his poles to cross the creek, and I fell because my trekking pole wasn't working. The tip didn't have any traction, so I slipped, and Pit Boss helped me up.
Right.
And I am really glad that I'm out here with him and not anybody else.
Yeah, it's good to. I was by myself, but you meet people all the time. Have you hiked with a bunch of people for any period of time so far?
Yeah, definitely. We've had we started with kind of a group and then lost them, and then a different group, and then we met some of our original group again. And a lot of people have had to get off trail. I mean, as you hiked it, so you kind of know that it's a constantly changing group.
Oh yeah.
But we do have the folks that we really know and really like spending time with, and when we hit a town, we usually text each other and say, "You guys want to go get food?" And so it's cool. It's like a little family.
Yeah. And you know what? It does change over the miles. Over 6 months, which is going to be, you're going to find you probably haven't met the people you're going to summit with right now. That's a kind of interesting thought. And that's kind of nice to discover new people on the trail all the time.
Yeah. Since everyone's out here for a common goal, it's very easy when you meet someone new to just say hi and just start chatting with them because we're all doing the same thing,
Absolutely. So what's up ahead? What are you looking for? Are you looking obviously for Moosilauke? I've just got the name wrong.
Mount Moosilauke, yeah. And Harper's Ferry. We're excited to get to the spiritual halfway point.
Yes.
Someone that we met in Fontana, at Fontana Dam, after he left from Fontana, he had gotten a trail name, and he is now at Harper's Ferry, which I think is really cool because we met him and was hanging out with him for a day when he got there. So that was really cool.
Yeah. There's a long way to go still, but I'm glad you're having fun on the trail. What about your wife? Is she you stay in contact with her quite regularly on the trail, or has she come out to see you at all, Spencer?
I'm not married, but we do keep contact with everyone from home.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, good talking to you, and thanks so much for catching up with us. I meant to ask you, where actually are you now?
Daleville.
We are in Daleville.
Oh, you're in Daleville.
And we're heading out. Yep. I need to get new shoes. The outfitter was closed yesterday, so we're headed to the outfitters in a little while, and then we're going to hike out today.
Cool. Well, thanks for taking the time to talk to us. I really do appreciate it. All right?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having us.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
I must say, when I saw the video in which Blake scraped a letter on a post, I did wince a bit. But he's a young guy, and he took it as a learning experience. I also love the way in which he insisted that he's making up for it by good deeds on the trail. That's how we all learn, isn't it? We screw up, and if we take anything from the screw up, we tend not to do the same thing again. Frankly, I was often shocked at some of the graffiti I saw, etched and even inked onto shelter walls. Didn't anybody tell these idiots not to deface property that isn't theirs? Apparently not. I just hope that more awareness of the need to keep the trail as pristine as possible, considering that 3 million people traipse through it every year, is starting to take effect. You can only hope, can't you? Sorry about the rant. Back to Spencer and Blake. What a way to bond with your son, or your stepson in this case. They really were a team, weren't they? It made me laugh yesterday as I was editing when I heard Blake getting distracted and scraping the desk he was sitting at. He's still a 14-year-old at heart. And of course, they hiked with RTK. How about that for a bit of cross-show promotion? For those of you who don't already know, Bruce RTK Matson is hiking the AT, and we're following him every week with updates. He too is over 900 miles and having a blast. If you'd like to listen, head on over to returningtokatahdin.libsyn, which is libsyn.com. You'll be glad that you did. My conversation with Spencer and Blake wasn't quite over though, as I had one more thing to ask. There's one more question I wanted to ask you. Your YouTube channel is called Leebolt Productions, I believe it is. Has that been quite a commitment to do and get those videos out?
It has. I didn't realize how difficult it would be at times with service being what it is.
Yeah.
And I ran into an issue with storage on my phone for a while where I couldn't
Right.
Like I could only record one video, and then it would say system was full.
Oh gosh.
And out here, those types of problems are very difficult to deal with because you're in the mountains, you're dirty, you're hungry, you need to hike, and you're not really thinking about your cell phone.
Yeah.
So it's been tough, but it's fun, and I like hearing all the feedback. People leave comments and stuff, so it's worth it to me.
Yeah, it really is a great record of the journey for you as well, isn't it? It will remind you of things when you get back home.
Correct. I'll probably spend lots of time rewatching them just to help trigger the thoughts again, you know?
Yeah, I'm sure you will. Cool. I thought I'd just add that back in. Now, one of the few hikers who I didn't hike with, but who I've actually met, Kelly Anderson, was a flip-flopper, and I find her utterly infectious. She has the greatest laugh. When I asked her to be on
If I Hit It Again,
she responded quickly by text with the two things that she would change. That wouldn't have worked so well with a podcast. So instead of having a text, we set up a time to record. Here's Kelly. Okay, we're back on with Kelly Anderson. Hi, Kelly. How are you?
Hi, Steve. Everything's fine. How are you doing?
Pretty good, as you know. Kelly and I had a little chat just now. Okay, so you know what this is? This is If I Did It Again. So I know you did your hike over a not 2 year period, but over a year's period, but you know, one half in 2016, one half in 2018. Would you do something different if you were to do it again?
Yeah, so it was one half at the end of 2016, then the other half at the beginning of 2017. So it was one year, but 2 sort of calendar years. Yeah. So if I were to do it again, I would go northbound. I would finish at Katahdin, and I would start in March to give myself enough time because I realized I was really slow. So I would start in March, go northbound, finish at Katahdin. The way I did it was I started southbound in August, and then I flip-flopped and went northbound Georgia to Harpers Ferry. But I think finishing at Katahdin, it has to be the most epic feeling. So, yeah.
Yeah, so that would be your reason for doing it. But there are so many people on the trail at that time. Would you enjoy that mass of people, or would you not think the fact that you did it the way you did it gave you a bit much more solitude, didn't it? Did you enjoy the solitude, or would you rather have more people around you?
Yeah, I think solitude is one thing, but on the AT, there's always opportunities to be alone, like you've talked about with many guests. If you prefer not to be around a lot of people, you just move on a little bit further and camp on your own. I must say, when I did flip and I went northbound with all the northbounders, there were a lot of people around, and it was a different kind of hike. So you'd have to be intentional about camping alone, or making sure that you did have alone time. Another thing that I did enjoy about going southbound was just it was later in the year, so it was cooler temperatures. You're walking through the fall up north, which was beautiful. So obviously there's pros and cons to both of them, right? Like anything, but but I just feel like at the end of that journey, to be able to finish at Katahdin would outweigh some of the other things. Plus, you wouldn't hike in the snow and camp in -7-degree weather. So,
well, I guess that was it. That was because I know you ended up in. I think you ended up in Harpers Ferry in sometime in December, didn't you?
December 15th. So it was really
right.
cold.
So, which other way would you look to do it if you were? What other things would you change about your hike?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things about the hike was when I went on the hike, it was sort of like a transition in jobs, but I wasn't exactly sure what I would do when I finished. And I thought I would have this big epiphany on the trail about my next career. And, I thought life would sort of figure itself out on the trail, which I did learn a lot, but it didn't figure itself out. And when I finished, I still didn't have a plan. So if I were to do it again, I would have something set up, a job or a place to stay and something to look forward to for once I finished the trail, so that in that moment when you finish, there's so many emotions, and then suddenly you're homeless, you're jobless. It's a lot to figure out quickly. So if anyone is thinking of through hiking, I would strongly recommend to have somewhere to live and a job lined up for when you're finished, because it just makes post trail time so much easier.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. But if you don't mind me asking, what made you think that life would sort itself out for you when you got back? How does life doesn't? I tell you, I've got to say, life didn't work that way for me. I'll tell you.
Yeah, I guess you have more wisdom than me, Steve. Yeah, I think I thought I would meet a lot of interesting people, which I did, and I would learn a lot about different jobs and things that are out there to do, which I did. And I thought, well, I would definitely learn which kind of careers I would be really interested in. And I mean, I learned so much and I gained so much knowledge, but it didn't help me practically when I finished.
Do you think it gave you skills or confidence, perhaps that you may not otherwise have had, to be prepared for a job? In other words, had you had a job to go back to, do you think you would have performed pretty well in that job straight away? And do you think the AT was perhaps the catalyst for giving you some of those skills?
Yeah, I think it definitely it separates you from other people. Like, you might think being homeless and hiking for a year would, future employers might look at that and say, oh wow, like, what's up with this person? But but really, like, I interviewed a few places after the job, and a lot of the interview, the people were so interested about the trail, and the job I have now, they hardly asked me about my qualifications. They were so interested, and it seemed to separate me. And the confidence factor is huge. I think we've talked about that before. Just knowing that you're good with what's on your back, and you can deal with anything that comes your way. So
I'll go tell you, we had, my wife and I had the chance to spend a little bit of time with Kelly. She came round to our house for lunch one day, and Diane cooked lunch, and Kelly and I sat outside at the end just talking about the trail, because once you get with people who've been on the trail, you share a bond with them, even though we weren't on the trail together. I feel that whenever I meet anybody who's been on the AT, I share a bond with them, which my wife just can't share because she hasn't been on the trail. And I've found that with everybody I've met who has anything to do with the trail, you just have that instant rapport with them, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. And actually, where I live now is less than 2 hours from the trail, and it's so comforting to know that I can just go on the trail and probably bump into some section hikers or through hikers or whatever, like-minded people, and have a little piece of that, if ever.
Sure.
I want that again. So yeah.
So what did you do when you got back from the trail then? Where did you go first?
Well, I had all of my stuff stored, not that I have a lot of stuff, but stored with a friend in Jacksonville in Florida. And I was renting my car out also in Florida. So that was the first place I went, just to pick up my car and to get some of my belongings. And then I sort of went on a further walkabout for a few weeks, just sort of visiting people and friends that I hadn't seen in many years. And you tried, was frantically applying for jobs and getting super stressed out. And then I decided I would go back to South Africa, where my parents were, and visit with them. And then sort of have a base there, since I didn't really have a base in the US. And then I came back and took the job I have now, like maybe 3 months after I finished the trail. So, yeah.
Now, I think we did mention before, you were actually a world ranked tennis player at one stage, weren't you? Did you? And you're now coaching tennis at a college now, aren't you?
Yeah. So I'm coaching at the University of Delaware.
So you're doubtless fit enough to go back on the trail at some stage. Would you ever go back?
Oh, I would go back in a heartbeat. Yeah, I would. I've been researching it. I'm actually taking a couple of the girls that I coached. They asked if I would take them hiking. So I said,
cool.
they were like, "So what do we do about water? What happens when we have to go to the toilet?"
Don't tell them. Don't tell them. Just tell them it's great. It's fine there. Don't worry about it.
There's like 5-star hotels all the way along.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, it's fantastic. Well, look, I love talking to you anyway, Kelly, and I'm so pleased that you've got yourself a job and you got yourself sorted out. I know that when we spoke, it was things were still a little tough, but you were starting to come out of it then. So, it's really good to hear your laughing voice again as well. And I really appreciate you coming back on the show.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me. Nice to hear your voice too.
Good to talk to you. See you soon. Bye.
All right.
So, for Kelly, it will be important to have something lined up on a return. I think that's important as well. You really need to move forward after this hike and don't be bogged down in the memory of it. Use it to reinforce what you do next. And of course, Kelly would want that Katahdin finish. I know we're trying to push oboes. Yep, I'm going to be using oboe instead of flip-flop going forward. But the Katahdin finish would always attract me, especially if I hadn't already had it. A little bonus now, Blaise Vitale is himself doing an oboe this year, and we caught up recently just after he'd been separated from his trail family. He texted me that he had a little story to tell, so here it is.
In case there's bad weather on the 4th.
Right, okay. Now, you texted me to tell me you've got a story to tell me, so what's it about?
Well, yesterday, the way I got separated, several of our friends were supposed to be taking a zero today. We were going to stop in the town of Elkton, Virginia. We knew there was a big rainstorm coming through, and it's been still fairly nippy or so. So we were going to take a zero.
Yeah.
But you had to get a shuttle into town. Right. I got to the Swift Run Gap, and then somebody pulls up, and he says he's a Appalachian Trail hiker from 2012. Can he do anything? And I said, well, rather than paying the inn would give you a shuttle for $10 or so. Can you get me to the inn? So he said, oh, sure. And then he starts, but then unfortunately we didn't. He just starts talking about his hike and other things. He had it off in the wrong direction. Instead of going off on the side road, we started going up Skyline Drive. And then eventually I had my GPS maps and suddenly said instead of 8 minutes away, it was 53 minutes away. But I wasn't sure if there was something wrong with my phone. He checked his phone and it says, well, it's 11 minutes away. But as soon as we started turning it, suddenly his phone started saying 58 minutes away because we were obviously heading in the wrong direction.
Oh dear.
But he was keeping a big conversation going up on the whole time. Eventually, the guy turned out to be a little bit eccentric.
Nice choice of words. Nice choice of words.
He found out that I was a physician, and then immediately started asking that if I could give him a prescription for Adderall. Which I declined. And really? Obviously I wouldn't. I'm practicing out of state if I was going to do anything like that, and that's clearly not Good Samaritan or anything like that. Plus, you need a written prescription anyway.
Oh dear.
But eventually, he recognized that he was going in the wrong direction, and then he says, "Oh, I don't have time to drop you off to go back." So he drops me off at the end of Skyline Drive, further up about 11 and a half miles up the trail.
Oh dear.
And then I tried to hitchhike back, but Skyline Drive is not the best road to hitchhike back.
No.
Because it's all the tourists, and a lot of them were couples and stuff like that. So after about 45 minutes of trying to hitchhike, I did have cell phone coverage, and I contacted some of my friends, one of them who had already made it to the hotel, and they just reminded me that the AT parallels along with the Skyline Drive. So I just walked up the hill another half mile, and now I'm separated from my friends. But I did another like 10 miles hiking that I wasn't anticipating doing yesterday.
Wow!
But I made it. But I made it to a hut, and then today I just actually did 5 miles in the rain before it got really heavy, and then I got to the Skyland Resort, which is wonderful. And
isn't it? Oh, it's great.
Right, I've been just gorging myself with food today. So.
Quite right too. He not only got into the car of an interesting character, but this guy drove him in the completely opposite direction. Excellent. It's another metaphor for life, isn't it, really? Sometimes we get off course or we're late for something and we try to rectify the mistake, only to find ourselves further off course. And it often takes quite a while to get back on the right path. Life is never a straight road. Thanks for sharing that, Blaise. Finally, if you're still with me, we have Chapter 8 of Hiking the Appalachian Trail is Easy, especially if you've never hiked before. If you're interested in getting a free copy of this book, just go to steveadams.info and on the homepage you'll be able to sign up for a free copy. While I'm on the subject of my books, I wanted to thank all of you who continue to buy them through Amazon.com. My podcast seems to have kept my books in the public eye, and Volume 1 of My Appalachian Trail is still number 5 in the top 100 paid camping books. Considering it was released 2 years ago, I'm really pleased, and I'd like to thank you very much for your generous support. Back to today's chapter. This episode is all about the various dangers or perceived dangers out there. One of these dangers is the probably fairly recent innovation of pink blazing. I tell you what it is and what I did in my own small way to mitigate its effect upon some of the women I was hiking with. I should warn you, there is a naughty expression, but I've replaced it with a beep. Believe me, you'll know it when you hear it and will doubtless be able to work out the expression that the beep replaces. But as I know some youngsters listen to this, I wanted to make sure that their parents didn't have to cover their ears. I'll see you next week. Chapter 8. Dangers. I've read in books and articles that it is vital to take maps or a compass to make sure you don't get lost on the trail. While I suspect this is important to some people, I have to say that my personal experience was that the trail was generally straightforward to follow. The entire route of the Appalachian Trail is delineated by a series of white 2x6-inch blazes painted on trees and rocks at intervals. These blazes occur regularly, so the direction of the trail is fairly obvious most of the time. There were certainly times that I found myself going in the wrong direction, yet those instances were nearly always my fault. On a couple of occasions I was speaking with my wife on the phone and I blew straight past a change of direction. The good thing about this was that making such a mistake taught me to pay more attention the next time. This was especially so when I ended up at the bottom of a hill where I shouldn't have been. Once again, learning by errors contributed to my hiking experience. There were times when I would be walking along and suddenly realise that I hadn't seen a blaze for some time. Such a discovery could have a number of meanings, none of them good. First, I was lost. Clearly, if this was the case, I needed to turn round and retrace my steps as best I could. Second, I had simply missed a blaze or two. That could be unnerving, as my concentration and sinking heart fought for supremacy in my mind before I would see another blaze. The third possibility was that there was an unusual distance between blazes. This didn't happen that often, though when it did, it gave me angst out of all proportion to the circumstances. Similarly, the relief when that piece of paint on a tree was eventually spotted was completely disproportionate to the event. So, take a compass and copious amounts of maps if you wish. They may make you feel better about where you are, but again, none of this is rocket science. Keeping your eyes open should be sufficient to help you on your way. While I wouldn't want to understate the inherent dangers of running into wildlife on the trail, you should know that you are entering their space. It didn't take me long to discover that the vast majority of the animals would prefer to be anywhere rather than where I was. I had early concerns as to what my reaction would be should I stumble upon a creature larger than me. At 250 pounds, that might have been a challenge, but I knew that bears would fall into this category. The correct way to deal with such an encounter was, apparently, to avoid eye contact and back away slowly. The whole avoid eye contact thing wasn't working for me as a concept. I couldn't imagine my eyes being anywhere other than fixed on the lumbering giant in front of me. That said, when such an encounter did take place, I was delighted to see that the bears wanted nothing to do with me, a feeling that was entirely mutual. I knew that I should avoid getting between a mother and her cubs at all cost. Come to think of it, that stipulation applies equally to humans as well as bears. Snakes always gave me pause. Their slithering movement was enough to frighten the crap out of me when I was unfortunate enough to come across one. That feeling never deserted me. Nearly all of the snakes I met could really only hiss at me, so while I jumped out of my skin every time I saw one, I never had any real problems with them. At a safe distance, I'd often hiss back at them. There were no other animals that particularly caused concern, though I was happy to avoid sleeping in shelters to avoid the ubiquitous mice. The collective name for a group of mice is a mischief. The damage wrought upon food bags badly hung or retained within the shelter gave ample evidence for the precise accuracy of that word. You're going to hurt yourself. Accept it and get over it. Or not. Every single day will provide you with opportunities to screw up your hike in one way or another. Try not to take those opportunities. I saw many young men running on the trail and was awed by their self-confidence and sheer athleticism. At the same time, I considered they were reckless in some of the chances that they took. My more advanced years precluded me from these feats, but I don't think I would have tried them at any time in my life. I wanted to finish this, and I knew that every one of my actions could have a negative consequence. That said, I couldn't help but feel the gnawing of envy as they all pranced by me. All I'm really saying is that time should be taken, and due respect for the trail should be given, to avoid the need to be carted away from the mountain by helicopter. I heard of one young man who decided to free climb down from either the Pinnacle or the Pulpit Rock in Pennsylvania. His rather adventurous feat entailed climbing down without any equipment at all. Quite why he thought this would be a good idea, I could never really get to grips with. He fell, broke a number of bones, and had to call the helicopter in. The 5 hours he spent waiting for help probably allowed him sufficient time to rethink his future actions in this regard. My injuries, while regular, were always repairable. I had a basic medical kit with me that really only staunched the flow of blood and cleaned up my wounds. Falling became something of an occupational hazard for me. However, I soon learned that there is no purpose sitting on the floor getting your pants wet. If you're able to scramble to your feet and put your weight on said feet without crumbling, you should be good to go. What else are you going to do? As they used to say in Hill Street Blues, let's be careful out there. When I was making preparations for my hike, one group that I never considered a fellow danger to me were my fellow travellers. In general terms, this turned out to be a correct assessment. I met many people on the trail, and each one of them contributed to my day in our interactions. That isn't to say that I warmed to all of them. However, I would happily have a drink with the vast majority of those I met. For a Brit, this is a reasonable measure of how you get on with somebody. I mentioned in the previous chapter that somebody had taken issue with me, even though I wasn't aware of it at the time. I can live with that, yet still think that the folks you meet on the Appalachian Trail will be some of the funniest, kindest, most thoughtful individuals you are likely to meet in your lifetime. I took issue with others' behaviour as well. Isn't that like everything else in life? Not one of us can be all things to all people, so we shouldn't try to be so. I stayed away from those I didn't warm to and never felt the need to stay somewhere I didn't want to be. Adopting that as an attitude should serve you well enough. My comments on other hikers lead me to introduce one story that served to indicate potential dangers from hikers you may meet. One of the oddities of the trail is the linkage of several activities to variations in the ubiquitous white blazes. The white blaze's sole function is to indicate the path. A hiker should be able to complete the trail by strict adherence just to them. By contrast, variations include blue blazing, yellow blazing, and pink blazing. A blue blaze indicates a path that takes the hiker away from the trail, often to a shelter or a vista. Yellow blazing involves using the road, the yellow lines in the road, to cut out sections of the hike. An example would be a hitch into town, followed by an exit directly from the town, not from the pickup point of the hitch. Some purists were critical of yellow blazers, asserting that this wasn't in some way playing the game. Even if those who yellow blaze from time to time saved, say, 50 miles, so what? They would still be 2,000 milers and still have my respect. Once again, hike your own hike. It was pink blazing that caused me some discomfort early in my hike, because this refers to the habit of some young men to effectively stalk women on whom they become fixated. In the incident that I saw, the fixation had dark overtones because it was very unwelcome. I took it upon myself to have a quiet word with the guy concerned. The young women I met were utterly fearless with regard to the privations of life in the forest, and even about some of the larger wildlife that shared the trail. It's also true to say that they were largely relaxed, being among so many young men for much of the time. The prettiest women received plenty of attention, as I'm sure they do in everyday life, yet this attention could sometimes develop into an obsession. I heard about this obsessive behaviour in conversation one night in camp. One young man would want to know where his latest object of affection was going to be staying that night. He would then make sure that he would be at the same shelter or motel. There was a distinct difference between the casual encounter and the near certainty that this guy would be nearby every night. I'm not a father to girls, but I'm sure that I would have found such behaviour unacceptable had my daughter been on the trail. At dinner one evening, with this nuisance still to arrive, I was told of his latest transgressions. There wasn't any one thing that upset the women. It was more that he would stare at them when they were dressing, making silly, sometimes suggestive comments. Frankly, it really didn't matter what he was doing because some of them felt uncomfortable. That alone should have been sufficient grounds for a quiet word. The following morning, with our group strung out along the trail, I came upon the young man taking a break for lunch. I was a little taken aback to see him, and nodding, I walked by. After a few more steps, I said, and returned. He looked up, smiling at me. Hey man, I replied. This non-committal greeting was going to get me nowhere, so I plunged straight in. Some of the girls are getting a little pissed off with you pink blazing them, so why don't you give it a bit of a rest? I'm sure you mean nothing by it, but, well, you know. My wussy second sentence rather undermined the first, yet it appeared to have hit home. He looked surprised, though thoughtful. I'm trying to be friendly. I want everybody to like me, he said. Well, it ain't working, man, so it might be a good idea to think about it. I was trying to be friendly, but clear. Okay, was his quiet response, and he carried on eating. I don't know if he behaved himself completely after that, though one of the women thanked me for speaking with him, so he must have at least heard me. Playing the grandfather was a new experience for me. Still, I was glad to have put down something of a marker. The young man made me a Facebook friend after the trail, so I guess he can't have been too upset. Maybe he did just want everybody to like him.